After a long tenure as the starting quarterback, Jackson Dart is finally gone to the NFL, and he will be replaced by Austin Simmons, an intriguing young quarterback who sat just 1 year behind Jackson Dart. I think he has a ton of potential, but early on in his career might struggle a little bit, as will Ole Miss potentially this season. The schedule, not very easy whatsoever. The first game, they're going to need to set them up to make a bowl game because Georgia State, super easy game, should be a very easy win to move to 1-0. But SEC play starts right after that, and it's a road trip to face Zach Calzada and the Kentucky Wildcats. Calzada, one of the most sought after transfer quarterbacks, and I think that is for good reason. He's going to lead Kentucky to a probably better season than last year, but still not going to be one of the best teams in the SEC by any means. I think Calzada can keep them in a lot of games, including this Ole Miss game, but we are going to go ahead and take Ole Miss in this one. I think it'll be closer than people expect. But regardless, we are going to take the road team in this one, maybe even a slight upset, but Ole Miss should get the job done here. Just better all around talent.
This is definitely going to be a game to watch out for because this will set the tone for the remainder of Ole Miss's season, considering Kentucky did pull off the upset last year at Ole Miss. And offensively, I think Kentucky got a lot better with Zach Calzada coming in. Defensively, though, I think the losses of Deion Walker and Maxwell Hairston to the NFL is going to hurt their chances to go back to back against the Rebels, even though they nearly pulled off an upset against Georgia last year at home. So a game to watch out for, but I do think Austin Simmons will be able to get the job done and get his first SEC win here. Arkansas is going to be another interesting game. This time it will be at home for the Rebels, and Taylon Green is back as their starting quarterback, and he's a very athletic quarterback, has a lot of upside, and can essentially will the Razorbacks to a win if he so chooses. The only issue is the rest of the supporting cast. We saw Arkansas pull off one upset last year with their win over Tennessee. They could be good for one upset this year again. I just don't know if it will be against Ole Miss. It will be interesting to see because it is still early on in the season and we need to see how Austin Simmons clicks. But for right now, we are going to go with Lane Kiffin and the Rebels team.
Then it's Tulane, and they lost their starting quarterback, Darian Mensah, to Duke in the offseason for $4 million total over 2 years. I think that this Tulane team is going to be quite a bit worse without him. Originally, we thought maybe they would compete with Ole Miss. Not anymore. Rebels moved to 4-0, heading into a very difficult matchup with LSU. The Tigers have Garrett Nussmeier returning at quarterback, and he's one of the favorites for the Heisman Trophy. I think this is where Ole Miss finally loses their first game. Just really not even close to being able to compete with LSU in my mind, even though they're at home. The Tigers significantly better all around. They have a much more experienced quarterback. They'll get the job done on.
Especially with how much hype the defense has going into next season. That's been the missing piece for Brian Kelly in his tenure as the LSU head coach. And I think this might be the year we finally see an LSU team break into the college football playoffs and maybe make a deep run. But we will have to see considering how difficult their schedule is. After the bye week, after that LSU loss, they will welcome Washington State. And Washington State's going to be an interesting team. John Matier is out as their starting quarterback. He was highly sought after and ended up choosing Oklahoma in the transfer portal. And now they have Zevi Eckhouse taking his place after he was their backup last season. And maybe it's going to be the same story where we see a Washington State quarterback play out of his mind in his one season as the starting quarterback before transferring to another school, like we saw with Cam Ward, and like we most likely will see with John Matier. That being said, though, Washington State lost Wayshawn Parker in the transfer portal as well, who was their lead running back after a phenomenal freshman season. And I think offensively, this is going to take some time for the Cougars to build up some steam. And given this is also a long road trip, I just don't think it is in the cards for them to get a win over the Rebels. I think Ole Miss will bounce back and get a win over Washington State.
Then it's a road trip to Georgia, not an easy matchup whatsoever. Gunnar Stockton back after taking the starting job from Carson Beck due to injury. And I think that Georgia's still going to be a really solid team next season. The defense is always really, really solid. And as long as none of the top players are the ones getting speeding tickets, they should be just fine. I think that the Bulldogs will pull off a pretty easy win over this Ole Miss team, just significantly more talented all around.
It's still going to be a very interesting game to watch, especially considering Ole Miss pulled off the upset last year at home, but on the road in Athens, Georgia is going to be a tall task for Austin Simmons to do. In his first year as their starting quarterback, I don't think he'll be able to get that upset win, but maybe down the road we could see this Ole Miss team pulling off an upset once again against Georgia. Doesn't get much easier the following week, which is another road trip, this time to Oklahoma. Like I mentioned earlier, John Matier is their starting quarterback, but they also got running back Jaden Ott in the transfer portal from Cal, a very sought after running back. And he was a big part in our hype for Cal at the very beginning of the offseason, why we thought they might have been a very successful team going into next season, but they have lost so many players due to some falling outs with their boosters and sponsors, and that ultimately drove a lot of the players out of the organization. But Oklahoma is going to be a very solid team next year, just with Matier and Jaden Ott. That combo is going to be deadly. Not to mention that Oklahoma last year, even though they were only a 500 team, pulled off one of the most shocking upsets in beating Alabama and eliminating them from the playoffs. I think they'll be able to build on the success they had towards the end of the season last year and will get a win over this Ole Miss team, which will be their second loss in a row before a very interesting matchup at home against the Gamecocks.
Yeah, South Carolina, very, very talented team. Lenore Sellers back at quarterback, another guy who's maybe in early Heisman talks. And I think that South Carolina, just overall, again, they're better than Ole Miss. Ole Miss is not the same team that we're used to seeing over the past few years, where they're just a perennial, 9, 10 win team. I think that they're going to take a little bit of a step back this season. It's going to be evident as they play some of these top teams in the SEC. And I think South Carolina is another one of those top teams this year. They'll get the win over Ole Miss here, dropping them to 5-4.
And this isn't to say that Ole Miss isn't going to be a competitive team. It's just you're going to have some growing pains associated with from moving on from your starting quarterback that you've had for the last 3, 4 seasons and now bringing in a new starting quarterback. Austin Simmons can come out of the gate and will this team to wins. He has the talent and ability to do that. It's just going to be the surrounding cast around him and just the bulk of new people coming into the program. Can Lane Kiffin turn them into a playoff team right away? Absolutely. He definitely has shown that Ole Miss can be a competitive team. I just don't think with this schedule they'll be able to do it with such a young quarterback and that much turnover on the roster. They will get back into the win column after the South Carolina loss with a win at home against the Citadel. Really no chance that they were going to drop this game. And then they have another very intriguing matchup at home. This time it is against Florida. DJ Lagway is back as their starting quarterback, and he is looking like he is going to be fully healthy for the start of next season. And that means we are looking at another potential Heisman candidate considering the dual threat capabilities of Lagway and how he almost single-handedly willed this Gators team to a win over Georgia last season before going down with an injury. I think if he's able to make leaps forward in his sophomore season, that Florida has a legitimate chance at making the college football playoffs. Maybe not winning the SEC, but definitely with how difficult their schedule is, they will have a resume capable of getting an at-large bid. Ole Miss is going to be a tough one. I do think that Billy Napier will be able to get the best of Lane Kiffin here, dropping the Rebels to 6-5, though. Again, it's going to be a very interesting game, and at this point in the season, maybe Austin Simmons has really hit his stride, and with Florida's difficult schedule, maybe they're reeling from some losses. But I do think Florida is going to be the more talented team in this game.
Next up is a road trip to Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. Seen a lot of interesting moments here in this game over the past few seasons, and I do think that this one has the potential to be an interesting game once again. It's generally pretty close. But Ole Miss, they really feel like a much better team than Mississippi State. The Bulldogs have been at the very bottom of the SEC for the last couple of years now. I think that they're probably going to stay right around there this next season. Just really not much to talk about here, unfortunately. Ole Miss is just better. They'll get a win here and move to 7-5 to end the season. Now, our way too early projection was 7.5 wins for the Rebels. We predicted them to go 8-4, dropped the prediction a little bit, and the projection came down just slightly with it to 7.25 wins, 3.6 and 4.4 in SEC play, so projected to be just under 500 or 500 in the conference. The floor for Ole Miss is going to be 4-8. This is really just if Austin Simmons is nowhere near the level of Jackson Dart and the offense can't get anything going. They could fall apart and have a terrible season like this. I really don't think that'll happen, though. I think they'll be much closer to their ceiling, which we do have at 8-4. With a young quarterback like Simmons, I think the ceiling really is only 8 wins. Just with how difficult their schedule is, some tough road games, I don't see them doing much better than this, which would be only 500 in SEC play. So, thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.